Hello, welcome back to daily highlights from Vacanze, which is probably the Wimbledon of chess, right? Tata Steel Masters. Not the oldest chess tournament in the world. The oldest chess tournament in the world is Hastings Congress, which I played in recently. Apparently the oldest tournament in the world. But Tata Steel has long been one of the top chess tournaments in the world. There was also Linares, which was quite big in the 1980s and 1990s. I would say for a short period, at least, or quite a long period actually, that probably exceeded Vacanze. Funnily enough, Garry Kasparov rarely played Vacanze, but he did play it towards the end of his career and was successful. So, interesting backstory. It's in a windswept town, which I believe is quite a few miles away from Amsterdam, but it's kind of in that area. Maybe 15, 20 miles away from Amsterdam. I've never been to Vacanze. I wish I could go. Actually, I played in Groningen a few years ago. This would have been about, maybe even as long ago as 11 years ago. And in the last round, I had a chance. If I won, I would have got qualified to the C section. I was playing like quite a strong Ukrainian player. I lost that game, unfortunately, and therefore I did not qualify. However, let's have a look at the main tournament rather than the actual. We can come back to the challenges. So we'll start with this game. So how do we assess the current position on the board? Well, that's a draw, so forget that one. So Gukesh versus. Jordan Van Forest is white against Gukesh. So how do we assess the current position? My first gut feeling, looking at his position just visually, looks very good for black. Black is very active. Queen on g6, rook on a4, rook coming to g4, h4. Potentially bishop putting pressure on g2. I'm not liking white's position at all. There's a pawn on c7, which is quite dangerous, but how do you do anything with it? So I played, this is the answer to the question I posed yesterday. I played Jordan Van Forest. Lost to him in a tournament in Amsterdam. It was a Batavia tournament. It was in a pub in Amsterdam. Really nice pub. He played in the pub. And I played Jordan when he was 15 years of age, and he crushed me with black. Very quickly, I played quite a poor game, and I realised later, after that game, he was obviously like a super talent. And he's also got a pedigree of his family played chess as well. Actually, somebody earlier was posted something on Twitter, and they said, it's looking good for the younger players today. Like Gukesh is better against Jordan Van Forest, and I thought that was quite, and somebody made this ironic comment, well, it's a shame that Jordan Van Forest is actually considered an older player now. Actually, is there a move like Rook F6 here? Rook F6 is possible, right? So I hit the Queen. If the Queen moves, I might have a Rook take C6. It feels a bit desperate, but after Rook F6, what am I missing? That might be a strong move for Black. I'd be surprised if Black didn't have a good move there, but a lot of it comes from the logic of the position, right? Like, I feel like if all your pieces are well placed, there's normally a tactic that helps you survive. So after Rook F6, what can Black play? Trying to think of a line. Knight D3 doesn't work because of Rook G6, Knight B2, Rook G8. So I can dismiss that. So process elimination. Rook F6. There's actually, maybe there's no move there, I don't know. There's Rook takes G2, Bishop G2 I was thinking, but that doesn't look right. King G2. So Rook G7, Rook F6 you play Queen G7 possibly, with the idea of Rook C6, Queen B2. And white also doesn't have time for Knight H5 because of Queen takes G2. So Rook F6, Queen G7. And is there a good follow-up for white? Bishop C3. But then threaten Rook C6. The other problem that white has is the back rank is weak as well. Potentially weak. So he has gone rook f6. So I was thinking here queen g7, bishop c3, maybe queen g5 then. And if rook c6, queen takes e3. Yeah, so I'm thinking queen g7 here. You can't move the knight on g3. Queen g7. And looking good for black. Let's just have a quick look at some of the other games. Come back to that game. Nepomniachtchi versus Pragananda. Sorry, yeah, exactly. Well, it looks like Nepo is better. He's a piece up. However, black does have 2 pawns for it. Black is trying to survive here, you would imagine. I don't think black is trying to be better. Can he survive? Actually, I don't think so. Because if we go rook c4, I have knight b6, and I'm surely technically winning. If you go rook c2, maybe I can just go king g2. Yeah, that feels like the best move, right? Best try. Like king g2, I could go rook d6 is an option. And still you can't win the pawn. And you're tied down to f2, which is quite important. So rook c2, king g2. Yeah, it feels like white's a lot better here, but maybe not completely win because you have a lack of pawns. So if you lose f2, you're not going to win the game, probably. So to me, the most natural move looks like king g2. And then I would probably anticipate something like rook d6, just defending the pawn. Does white then have a good idea? You can't move the rook from d1, from f1 because you'll drop f2. You could, however, play a move like bishop e4, but that will run into rook a2. So you have to be worried about rook a2 as well. So king g2, rook d6, rook b4. Yeah, black doesn't necessarily have a very good way to improve the strength of the attack. However, you could maintain the blockade for a while, maybe improve the position on the king side by playing h5, king g7, and you just wait on white to try and find. So my guess is this position is better for white, but not necessarily technically winning yet. Let's go to Anish Giri. Very sharp position. White's just played b4. Looking okay for black actually. There's knight takes e5, but I think Anish intends to play. So I guess his reason that he went b4, he's afraid that black will go c5 at some point. Knight takes e5. You do have maybe rook f8 is the idea. Rook f8 is probably the idea, but I'm not sure if that's good enough or not. Delete. There's certain players I feel like I just find them a little bit boring. It's like Anish. But maybe that's just an image perception that because so many people said he's a boring player that, you know, what is a boring player anyway? You know, is chess ever boring? You know, you could argue as well. But yeah, I mean, it feels kind of equal to me. I mean, actually another option, no, you can't go knight f8. I mean, if anyone's better, it's probably going to be white. You know, there's weaknesses here. Actually, if you take on e5, you're equalising the pawn. So at the moment, black is a pawn down. However, yeah. So I would say white is probably the one who's trying to be better here, if anyone. But it's a very concrete line, like knight e5, rook f8. Do you have anything there? In fact, after rook f8, there's also rook d8. Rook d8. But then you take on e8 and you take on e5. So rook f8, I think I could play something like queen e6 possibly. Just defending e5, and if you take on e8, I take back the queen. I should be okay. So I think black is okay here. I'm not sure if black is better, but yeah, I would guess about equal this position. He's gone rook f8. Although he's very short of time as well, Par. I mean, he's not had a very good tournament. He's gone rook d8. So this is where I was thinking that rook takes e8. You have rook takes e8, bishop. So what's his idea? He must have an idea here. rook takes, bishop takes. Then you have something like queen e6 maybe with the idea of queen e5. But then queen c3, queen e5, queen c6, king b8. Yeah, although that position does also look a little bit drawish. So critical moments here. What about the Ali Reza versus Yi Wei game? Ali Reza having a decent event. He's a pawn up in this game. I think he's likely to put Yi Wei to the sword. And I'll tell you why. I think Ali Reza's played a lot of chess recently. You know, he played that match against... I thought the amount of abuse he got online for that was totally ludicrous. I don't know if people agree with me, but... You know, the French people set up these series of matches for Ali Reza to try and get through and qualify. I thought it was an exciting element to the end of the year and the possibility of qualifying for the candidates. If you already knew who qualified for the candidates way in advance, it'd be very boring. I think the fact they had some kind of race made it interesting. But unfortunately... you got a lot of abuse for that, you know, not abuse, but, you know, a lot of people criticising the match set up and saying it was a fix and all this kind of stuff. It was not a fix, it was just, you know, he was playing against probably players he wouldn't normally play against, you know, in a kind of artificial way to kind of boost his rating. But I just think, yeah, that's an exciting part of chess, you know, that's an interesting part of chess. Can you beat these kind of lower rated players enough? And I think it made it into an exciting race. Wesley So could have done the same. He chose not to. So anyway, so Ali Reza looks like he's possibly winning. He's got a huge extra pawn on b7. However, black does have some counterplay. If you ever reach g2. So there's rook d2 is threatened, or maybe knight g6 f4. I think Ali Reza will put this to bed. Some move like rook c2 might tidy up. Maybe I'm being slightly pessimistic about black's position. Again, I'm probably... Sometimes you can analyse by rating and just think, well, that guy's higher rated, therefore... You know, it's Ali Reza, you just think he's like... I mean, actually, he's not that much higher than Yi Wei, is it? He's only like 19 points higher. Okay, we'll come back to that. I also want to look at Max Warmerdam versus Alexander Donchenko, two younger players. Alexander Donchenko is a nice guy, he's from Germany. Yeah, I played him a couple of times. One of his tournaments I mentioned earlier where I was played in Groningen, which is a really nice tournament actually, if you ever get a chance to play there. But he was very young at the time. I looked at his rating. I remember, oh yeah, I think he was like 12 at the time or something. Wow, he's like 2,400 and he's like 12 or something, or 13 or something. And I was like, oh my God, you know, this is a nightmare. You know, he's like 20, I think maybe he was 2,300 at the time. And I was probably rated about, I'm not sure what I was rated at that point, 2013. I might have been about either low 2,500s or high 2,400s. That was before the deflation fully kicked in. But I beat him there and I drew with him Northumbria. So it's a rare player that I have a rare top player. Obviously, if we played a load of games, he'd, you know, have a crushing plus score against me. But, you know, the variance of 2 games meant that I'm slightly up. So it's probably not worth even mentioning. But this game looks interesting as well, actually. Fascinating struggles today in Vacanzea. I like to see it. G3 is a possible move for white. White seems to be better to me, mainly because you're generally in a King's Indian. So this looks like a kind of King's Indian structure. Yeah, it is. In the King's Indian, you don't want to lose the light square bishop as black. It's well known that if you lose the light square bishop, it makes it much harder to create a decisive attack on the king side, which is generally what. So white's idea is if you take here, then you're going to take here. It's much harder to generate a decisive attack. And white's actually won a pawn as well. Actually 2 pawns now. 3 pawns. No, this must be winning. So he's actually completely outplayed him. Although the only downside is obviously in the King's Indian you have all this counterplay. And also I do have a tendency to jump to the gun as well, which we've already established, right? in my evaluation of positions. So there's a couple of minus points for white here. Firstly, my suggestion g3 might run into some kind of maybe queen trap, although then rook here you do have queen e8 check, I'm noticing. Secondly, the rook on a4 is very badly placed. So though white is 3 pawns up, bishop pair probably winning. From a practical perspective, there's still problems. Yeah, so I would be very surprised if white is not winning here. Yeah, it's saying plus 3.6. In fact, 92 is crushing, and that's what he's played. So, very good game by Warmadam so far. Let's go back to the Jordan Fan Forest game. Yeah, so this is the line I was mentioned. You could go Queen G7, Bishop C3, and then Queen G5, hit the rook. So I'm glad that I found a top line. Fairly obvious, but still pleasing. If Rook E5, then it's Queen F6, Rook E8, Rook E8, Bishop F6, Rook E1, wins for black. So you can't go Rook E5 and try and be clever. Yeah, I think Gukesh is closing on another win, which is big to beat Jordan Fan Forest, who's a former winner of this event. Gukesh is a very interesting player. We don't really know where we are with Gukesh, do we? He seems to be very strong. He's had a bad run of it recently. He had a very good Olympiad about a year ago. Maybe a little bit longer than a year ago. I can't remember when that last Olympiad was. It was probably longer than a year ago, because there's an Olympiad this year. So it must have been 2 years ago. Probably about 18 months ago the last Olympiad was. A very good Olympiad there. He's not quite lived up to that form, Gukesh. Because he's suddenly got very, very good very quickly. But he's still there or thereabouts. He's playing in the candidates. As I said yesterday, I feel like Pragananda is the guy they're betting all their chips on as far as world titles are concerned, but you can't discount people like Gukesh. Queen E2 is a good move. In a slightly desperate position for white, I would say. I'd say objectively speaking, white is in trouble. You know, because not only are you, I think you're a pawn down, and also obviously any endgame is going to be really bad with the black. Well, you wouldn't go b5 because the bishop's hanging, but you know, long term you have this two connectors. However, in the short term, yeah, white will try to generate some kind of threats and try to, you know, mix it up. If I was black against Jordan Fan Forest, I'd probably mess up. But Gukesh is very, very solid. He's not going to make any silly errors. Knight e6 is a fabulous move. He's threatening knight f4 now. So this is what strong players will do. When they're better, they'll try and maximise. They're maximalists. Top players are maximalists. They'll maximise their options. He's also got this idea of maybe just taking the pawn with a knight. It's another option. So black seems to be a lot better here. I think winning. I think he's been winning for a few moves. So we look at the engine of Al. Yeah, it says very, very... Was knight e6 the top move? Yeah, it was. Wow. Let's just go right to the back of the game. And let's have a look at the whole game. It's interesting he went f4. I think this is Magnus. Jordan Van Forest worked as a second for Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus has played similar variations to this. So he's probably seen this kind of stuff before. Although at some point Gukesh seems to have outplayed him. And obviously Gukesh would be aware of that. He'd be aware that, you know, it's a game within a game preparation. He'd have been aware that Jordan Van Forest has done work with Magnus before. Seems like Gukesh got a good position at the opening. We're just checking it with the engine. Yeah, so actually G5 was a bit ropey. He should have taken the pawn. But presumably he was concerned about his knight f4 move. G5, this is the thing with the Gukesh games. I'm noticing he is throwing in one or two ropey moves every game, even the ones he wins. And that was Queen f2 was a huge blunder. He should have gone Queen e3. That's a surprising mistake by play of Jordan Fan Forest level. Now he's gone Queen F2, allowing this double capture. Now, why has he made that mistake? I don't think it's a miscalculation. I think he's seen this, but he's just misevaluated the position essentially. So he's almost certainly seen this far, but he's just misevaluated it. He thinks that white's a lot better. White isn't. The engine is always right. Knight c5, very cool move. So his idea is if you go knight e5, knight back there, rook b7 is very strong, but maybe misevaluate position after knight c5. Probably thought e5. So you calculate it from afar and you see, well, maybe e5. I've got very good threats. The computer doesn't like it, and black is starting to get on top. So very nice game by Gukesh so far. Can he keep it up? What's happening with the Pragananda game? Let's have a... Yeah, amazing actually. The Prag is holding on here. Was he ever worse? I think this Pragananda is just like an engine. It's like a walking engine. And he's only going to get better as well, Pragananda. He's only going to get stronger. Yeah, Queen e4 though was a lot better for white. That's what he played. Maybe he's just playing all the top moves, but it's not enough because, you know, chess is a draw. And he's got knight d4, which is a fabulous move. Because you're really suffering after knight c3. Takes, rook takes. You really, it's a grim position to defend because white will have that structure forever. And will just play around forever and try and grind you down. So, knight d4 is, yeah, very concrete. And these kids are just very good at calculation. You know, he would have calculated all this and said, look, I can hold this. And it looks like he's holding. So I said king g2. Yeah, white's better, but it's not enough. It's not enough to win the game. In fact, knight b6, you just go rook b8 and there's no way to win it. Because rook b8, and if you move the knight of rook b1, so you have to find some weird move with bishop d5. Rook e2 is possible. Okay, so that's that. Anish is drawing. Ali Reza is winning. So I was right about sometimes you know, it pays to be optimistic. I thought, you know, he's played a lot more chess than Yi Wei recently, and I think he's a stronger player anyway. It was interesting what Magnus was saying about Ali Reza. I think Magnus thinks that Ali Reza is just super talented, but maybe hasn't quite achieved his full potential. He's up there as like a sort of world championship level talent. Because he was mentioning when Ali Reza was hired to work with Magnus in preparation for a world championship match, Ali Reza was doing three things at the same time. He was playing blitz, he was playing 2 blitz games, and he was looking at the position that they were, you know, all at the same time, which is insane, right? Now, why was Ali Reza doing that? I think because he's probably got like some kind of ADHD or some kind of thing where he's like a little bit hyperactive. I think I've got that as well. Is it ADHD or ADD? Or I can't remember what it's called. I normally call it ADHD, right? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So Ding Liren drew. Maxwell Madame is winning, but there's still some practical play left. Anish, we think, is probably going to draw. Nepo, we think, is going to draw with Pragananda robot, the Prag robot, and Gukesh seems to be heading towards a win. So very interesting. Let's have a quick look at the candidates. No, we're not going to bother with the challenges for today. But yeah, well, thanks anyway for watching. Oh no, hang on. Vidit had a draw, right? Yeah. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching again. Like and subscribe. Thank you. My name's Daniel Gomali. You've been great. Please tune in tomorrow. I think, is there a round tomorrow? Is it a rest day? Probably a rest day coming up. I think they do play tomorrow and then maybe a rest day after that. Tune in tomorrow for round 7 highlights as well. Thank you.